Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you got to go see the breakout rooms and what that's going to look like, and you got a little bit of flow. You know, it was encouraging for me when I was watching everybody. You probably would think of this environment, it doesn't feel, it would lack engagement, and that wasn't the case. Everybody was talking, and I think we're getting used to, we can talk with masks, and we can still have conversations and do those things. So, couple of things I wanted to point out that are going on, and for those of you that will be running some type of omni-channel meetings as we move forward. Of course, we have our virtual audience that I don't know where the full numbers are, but again, we had 800 people that registered for that, and that is going live. But now we're getting into a discussion, you're going to see this in a minute, that we actually have one of our panelists is coming in virtually. And he's going to be able to see us, by the way. So he's a part of our conversation. I can see him on screen already. We're going to do the intros. You're going to see him on screen in a few minutes. But you need to know that that's part of the production. All of a sudden, we have a panelist not just zooming in. He's actually going to be able to see us and be part of the conversation as well. It's an important piece to it. And then I think what was really important is Solomon Productions in between, when we were on break, they actually went and recorded right before we went on break, and they're showing what the room looks like, and you coming back, and they're showing what the breaks area looks like for the virtual audience so that they understand what's going on. It's an important piece that's sometimes missed, that we need to be able to educate that audience the same way, not just the sessions that we're doing. So it's important to think production versus just what we're doing virtually or omni-channel in that regard. So with that, we're going to get started with our next panel. I hope you enjoyed the first one. Again, as I said, we're trying to look at a broad section of the industry, and I always tease Steve. He's the lawyer that I always put on the spot, but I think he is just very frank, but he also understands there's a relationship piece outside of the legal piece, and I think that's the important message that we took away from there. This panel, we're going to take a look at different sections of our industry. And with us today, of course, to my left, we have Norma Dean. And Norma Dean is with our great partners at Delta Airlines.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I say this often, and you've heard me if you've been on my calls, and I don't say it just because they're our partners. Delta does it right.
Yeah, we do.
They do. And they've really led through this time frame, specifically on the communication standpoint. I think they've done such a good job of trying to communicate that, you know, flying on an airplane, the air there is actually cleaner than your home. And most people don't know that. And they've done an outstanding job. So we're going to have Norma talk about the airline industry a little bit, and so you understand what's really going on and what that looks like. And to my left, our great partner, and it's the Chief Sales Officer here for Omni Hotels, and Dan Surette. And Dan, thank you again for being a gracious host and being with us. Dan, since this started, has been the one that is always pinging me with, do you have this information, or do you have this piece of information? And he was in the same boat. And again, I think Omni, not just because there's a common correlation. We partner with people that really do it well. And I thought Omni did it extremely well. And what they started to look at protocols and how you're going to move forward. And we're going to talk about that. But I think it's important to understand the reality of the hotel world right now. Yeah. And for you to understand what hotels are going through and what that looks like. And then joining us virtually, last but not least, is Bob Priestheck. He is, there he is. Bob's now with us. Everybody, we can wave to Bob. Bob is with Freeman, and what they're doing in the exhibition world actually matters tremendously. And they've put a lot of good work into flow and traffic flow and some of the things. Candidly, some of the concepts we actually implemented here came from some of the great work that Freeman has done. And most importantly, you know, Bob's been involved with Go Live, which is that part of the world, as far as the exhibition world, advocating for exhibition and events and getting that started again. So we think that's going to be a great dialogue. I've been told I will hear Bob lightly, but you should be able to hear him really well within the room, and it's just the way the sound has worked out. But for our other panelists, they'll hear him. We won't hear him as quite as loud. But with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And truly, this is just a conversation. But I'm going to start with Norma, not because you're in the middle. It's because we can't start our journey without air. So I think it's an important one to talk about. Let's talk about first.
Can I say something first?
You're going to, I know
So
that.
I know, but let me just tell y'all, the Omni needs to know that I have called the DEA. Those cookies are crack cookies. Those are so good. I got up out of bed and ate mine. I was dead asleep and woke up and said, I got cookies. I'm sorry, I digress. Go ahead.
Oh, God, I love Norma.
Okay, so what?
Let's talk about first some of the myths versus reality. You heard me talk about air. I also want to just talk about cleaning and protocols and what you guys are doing. And can you give the audience a little bit of insight? And I know you're working with other airlines as well. As an industry, you guys are trying to make people feel comfortable about traveling again. And can you just talk to that a little bit?
Well, I have a cheat sheet because I wanted to make sure I had the most current statistics. And as of day before yesterday, the myth is people aren't traveling. The reality is there are 762,000 people a day that TSA reports. The good news is that's a 3% week over week up increase. The bad news is that's a 70% year over year decrease. However, out of those 762,000 passengers, 136,000 of them are Delta. And while we don't think corporations are traveling, corporations are traveling, as well as military and necessary essential workers. So that's good news. And the more that we can, and all credit goes to our CEO with his communication and making sure that every single Delta employee, which started out as 80,000, we're now down to like 65,000 because we offered some really good packages for early retirement and separation, and people went happily, you know, which is the best thing you can do while the rest of us are still like, but it's okay, we got this. So, you know, all credit goes to our CEO who is front and center and make sure that what we do for you, and it's funny because so many of y'all said, you know, this is the first time I've gotten on a flight, or, you know, it's really weird for me to be in the airport. So it's important that you spread the word that, because we're trying to get over people's fears and anxieties, right? So that's a really hard thing to do. You can't tell people not to be scared unless you make them face their fears. And hopefully we're assuaging all that with the visual cues that you see all over the airport. I mean, from the minute you walk through the door we started all this because this started back in Asia where we had flights. I mean, our partners here at Omni may not have had hotels there, but we were flying people around, right? And we soon discovered who has all the rights to those spray machines that they targeted the poor people walking on the street in China. So now we ate up all that. We bought every single machine that was out there, every single product that was out there so that we could spray down our airplanes. And I can go into more, but I'll turn it over to him. But the most important thing is that you communicate and that we tell people that people are traveling, they are traveling safely. And the things that we are doing as far as making sure that people are safe with their masks, we don't play around with that stuff, y'all. I mean, we will turn a plane around, which we have never done. We have never done. And you know what? And if people think they're a little bit too good to wear a mask, we got your name, and we will not let you fly Delta Airlines. And we don't care if you're medallion or not. Wow. Seriously. We empower our employees, so we have the gate agent and the flight attendant that because we decontaminize every single plane on every single turn when it comes in, right? And so the head flight attendant and the gate agent, they walk on board, and if that sucker isn't to our standard, then they can call a delay. They can say, time out, this flight isn't. We are an operations-based airline. In the 90-something plus years that we've been traveling, it's D0. Well, you know what? It's about being safe and taking care of our employees and taking care of our customers. Thank you. And because this is the direction and the policy that Delta Airlines has, all of us as Delta employees are all in. We're all in, even the flight attendants and the pilots. I mean, yesterday on the plane, the pilot was like, thank you for being on our plane. You know, unlike our competitors, we're knocking out the middle seat till at least the end of the year. Yeah. We're not going to be booking to 100% capacity. We have to make sure that every time you sit on a plane, and granted, we're not this far apart on a plane, but at least you have some assurance that people aren't like right on top of you. So I could talk forever, but I'll turn it back over to you. Sorry.
But before we
Get back to me. I got
Before
more
we
to
move
tell
on,
you.
you've shared a motto from your CEO during this time frame around lives.
Around what?
Lives is part of
Oh.
the motto. Just to share that with the group.
People over profits.
Yeah. And that is a motto that she shared with us long ago, and I think it's important to understand
You know what?
that filter.
We will make sure, I mean, first of all, we got to get people back on planes. So all of our investments right now are about sanitation and safety and making sure that when a person does come back, does fly, that they go, I feel comfortable enough to fly again.
Right.
And so, you know what, we happen to be a little bit more nimble than our partners in the hotel industry, that we can move assets, we can put our planes to sleep, we can put them in the desert, bring them back out, we charter them for we have an alternate way to sell our product, so charters and private jet and things like that. But yeah, so we'll find a way, we are in it. We will be in it for you. It's about being a good partner and a supplier for you and for the rest of our customers that trust us with our lives. It's interesting because people used to take air travel for granted, right?
Yeah.
I mean, anybody could fly on a plane, hell, you know? But now they are because it is, like Mike said, the very first step of people leaving their world, you know? We got to get over this. They're being frightful. Sorry, that's bad branding. Yeah, so it's important.
Norma, thank you, and thank you to Delta, seriously, for leading
I'm
this
proud.
effort. So,
Hashtag Delta
seriously.
proud.
Yeah, should be, very much so. Dan, the hotel industry, and I
Brutal.
really...
I'm the chief cancellation officer at Omni Hotels. Kara's the vice president of cancellations. Mark is... Michael, we're high-fiving around the office when the new bookings outweigh the cancels, and we've had 8,000 cancels since March. 8,000, and we're a 50-hotel brand.
Right.
And it's been rough. And we had 6 hotels, I think, ride out the storm and stay open. And we're up to 40 hotels open now, and it's been tough, but we've learned a lot. I think you said it right on. Trust and confidence. And quite frankly, I think safety and whether it's flying or checking in, going to a restaurant or going out, those are table stakes. I'm assuming you're going to be safe. And quite frankly, when it's not, is really when we're going to take those hits. And I think this is a great step forward for all of us because the last thing we need is a big event, a conference, a meeting, a ball game, UNC, oh, can't gather. Look what happened. You know, the Boston issue in March was really a tough one. And it's been hard on our business. All of our peers and partners and competitors, we're all in this together. But, you know, we had 20,000 associates on March 10th, and we're just getting back to 5,000. So we have almost a third of our associates, or in many hotels, they were busier. But this has been tough, and we've learned a lot. I mean, procurement, those are my pals. I mean, how do we get face masks, and can you get sanitizing machines or disinfecting? And for a few of you that were in the room, we have our electrostatic sprayer, and he was walking through the room a little bit ago. These are now maybe some norms that we're going to be living with, but we learned a lot. And how do you, barriers? Who talks about vessels? Maybe going on a boat or going out. We talk about vessels and food vessels and how do we do receptions, how do you do events. So from our Omni Safe and Clean program, it's working with our operations and food and beverage teams has been tremendous. It's, 150 points all along the guest journey, everything from the arrival and the welcome, and how do you get people checked in, and how do we valet a car, and how do we, for an elevator, we're not jamming people in, and what's the signage, and what's the traffic flow, as you perfectly described today, and how do we serve food, and what happens in your guest room, and we're proud to be your host this week, but we want to learn. This is a lab for us. We want to know how your stay was, and did you get your safe and clean, all of your items in the bag, and did you feel like, the individually wrapped items as you saw through the break and this morning, and and your amended and your cookies and, you know, made safe by our staff, sealed, individually packaged. All those things that we never really took for granted or assumed now have to be considered. So it's, how are you going to keep me safe? And then what can I do? What are my restrictions? What are the rules? And what I learned really quick in talking with you, and thank you for your calls and communication, is no state is the same. Counties and cities can do their thing. And then when you find the state pages, no one's put the orders in the same place. So, you know, many of you may not know that there are 2 states really where you can have pretty larger gatherings. Texas, what's the rule in Texas? 50% capacity indoors, and then there's some outdoor restrictions. In Texas, in Florida, is 6 feet social distancing. But the other 48, 49 states, what have you, they're all different in the counties and in the cities. So not only is it how do you keep people safe, but what are the rules so that we can educate you all as planners? What can we do, you know, as the rules change? And it's been an education, and proud of what we've done at our brand. But I know all the brands are working really hard, but it is about earning trust and confidence and building. We have, you know, half of our brand this week had group business. We had 130 group events in July. We're probably at 150 this month, next month. You know, it's going to grow. Debbie Downer, Amanda, tells me that it's not coming back until 2023, Amanda. By the way, toilet paper and legislation, who's worried about Dr. Pepper? Is anyone out here worried about the shortage of Dr. Pepper? But we do have business on the books this year, and quite frankly, it's less rebooks now, and it's more new opportunities. So, you know, I'm optimistic that it's going to come back sooner. But these are the types of events and the learnings that we're all going to gain and get better.
Amanda, I think that's probably the first time in your life that you're a bigger downer than the lawyer. Just saying. Just FYI. Dan, one other point before we move through there. One of the things that I know when we've done on the calls is that was really of interest to the planning community was what you're doing for your team members. That we sometimes forget. Everything you're doing on the front of the house, you're doing in the back of the house as well.
Right.
To keep them. But can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, talking about protocols and so forth. You know,
yeah.
we have health and safety checks every day. You know, you see the stickers of the staff here. I'm cool. It's a temperature check, but it's also a visual and a verbal check. We've had associates quarantine themselves. Knock wood. We've had, you know, lots of events. Our leisure business is really strong. Amanda mentioned drive traffic. It's been very busy. So we have actually hotels that are extremely busy, like a Corpus Christi and a Hilton Head and an Amelia and a Barton Creek. And even this hotel on the weekends is extremely busy because people just want to get out. But we want to make sure that our staff is safe. And so we do health and safety checks, and we have them wear their sticker every day. But we're also, you know, there's signage in the back, and there are sanitation stations, and there are protocols for the kitchen staff. You know, we're not lining up 20 people elbow to elbow to do plate ups, right? It's all individually packaged for the most part. And we're just making sure that not only the guests are safe, but we have to make sure our teams are safe as well. And I think we've done a really nice job of that. And again, have had no instances inside our teams, but also with groups and travelers to speak of. And that tells us a lot about what we've all done as an industry.
And can I just add what
Please.
we're doing?
Please.
You know what? We have partnered with the Mayo Clinic. Delta Airlines is the largest corporation worldwide that will COVID test 100% of our employees. And so we are now up to like 65, 70%, and those that can get to our hub locations. We've just sent out home testing, and we're rolling out through an association with CVS rapid testing for our frontline essential, because airlines are essential travel, right? So our flight attendants, our gate agents, all those people are there every single day, and they move around, unlike the hotel where it's kind of like in one position, one city, one set. So we are providing data for the Mayo Clinic to benchmark a global operation that Delta's paying for, that because it behooves us to do so, again, for our employees, for our customers who will come back and return to fly Delta.
Well, and I think that's just an important note for you, because again, we keep saying this is to help you talk to stakeholders. to understand that, that if you're protecting the back of the house, that is to protect the front of the house. And that work, being able to be part of the conversation, I think is just an important one. But Bob, we're going to go to you. We're going to get to Slido questions in a few minutes. But Bob, thank you for joining us. And again, part of this experience was being able to show what a omni-channel meeting looks like. And you joining us virtually on a panel, but where we can see you and you can be a part of this is just outstanding. But tell us about the exhibition world. I mean, we know with what Dan had just mentioned, there's only a few places doing large meetings right now, or these larger events. What do you see in the landscape, and what have you been dealing with? And again, I do mean it. You've done some tremendous work at Freeman, trying to map out what this can look like.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everybody. I'm in San Francisco today, where it's very smoky. So it's nice to be with you all. Yeah, I mean, for Freeman and for the trade show or large business event industry, it's been obviously pretty rough. We've seen pretty much all shows cancel between now and the end of the calendar year. It's not really clear what will happen in the new year. There's a lot of folks who are still planning on running their shows, but of course it's going to depend on local laws and regulations. We've been really focused on health and safety, of course, and making sure that people can return to events and be safe. And that's an interesting, it's an interesting exercise, because a lot of what we've been building for at Freeman and what I've been saying for decades is that large events, trade shows, big business events have to become more personalized and contextualized for the attendees. And while I wouldn't wish COVID ever again, it is going to drive some of that personalization and contextualization. So we're really working with our customers to think about, how do we do that? How do we ensure that not only do we create a safe environment, but how do we create something that's more personalized and more valuable? The virtual platform is clearly here to stay. It's not new. It's actually really this is an opportunity to re-educate our clients on all of the options that are available to them. I think virtual will it'll be a part of our life forever. It's not quite the same, but it's where we'll go for quantity. And if you take a typical corporate customer, they might have hundreds of thousands of people who could be at an event, but there's 5,000 or 6,000 people there. Or if you look at an association, they might have 25,000 members and only 2,000 people at the event. So we will continue to see virtual as a way to kind of drive overall large quantity measures, but then the in-person event is going to need to be a much higher quality experience that is much more personalized. So it's been rough. I won't lie. For Freeman, almost a 100-year-old business, canceled about $1 billion worth of business in the first 30 days of COVID, and we've continued to cancel. I'm also running a department of chief cancellation officers, but we're really trying to look forward and really not waste this time, as hard as it is, thinking about how do we help our customers reinvent and drive towards a new model. And later, I'm happy, Mike, if you'd like to talk more about hybrid meetings and hybrid events and what we can expect in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And what you talked about, it not being new, it's one of the comments I've made is congratulations that the mainstream meetings market is now caught up with many of our tech companies. Because our tech companies have been doing these type of omni-channel meetings for a long period of time.
Yeah,
it's to your point,
right.
I think we're getting an opportunity to all learn on what this can look like moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we have digital solutions, and the interesting thing about hybrid events or virtual events, I don't really love the word hybrid, but that's the word we're all using, omni-channel experiences, is that, we've made investments in these business decades ago. They just weren't largely deployed. Like you say, corporate tech companies, they've been using this stuff. And by the way, the number one marketing tool pre-COVID for a face-to-face event was the virtual event. So once people attended a virtual event, they actually wanted to come to the face-to-face event. So but there's a lot of technology and tools that have already existed and were being used by certain types of customers. And it's not so much the platform, it's really the strategy, the content, really how do you use each medium appropriately. What we've seen coming out of the gate in COVID is a lot of people taking their event strategy and trying to put it online. And that's fine when you don't have any other options, but the satisfaction rate is pretty low. What we're going to see in the future is really much more clear strategies that start with an omni-channel approach, and all the content will be designed that way. The delivery mechanisms will be that way, and it won't just be virtual events, but we'll see a lot more broadcasts, and that will be in the virtual environment and in the physical environment. So we'll all get through this, and then it'll actually be exciting because we'll have a whole new thing to work on.
Hey, one last question, Bob, on this part, and then we're going to get to questions with Slido. Of all the things you're having to solve for coming out of this, and when you think about an exhibition space, which is probably the most obvious and complicated that we have to fix, you have to solve for? I mean, like for this, flow to me was one of the biggest things we have to really think about that we never thought about before. What does that look like in your world?
Yeah, I would say there's, if I'm talking about Freeman specifically,
yeah.
I would say it's really about caring for our people and our culture, because that is really our killer app. That's our strategic differentiator. That's, we're a company that cares greatly about that. And I worry about just, our people not working. We want to be able to bring the business back up. I'm sure this is shared by everybody. We're actually a company that believes our people are our assets. That's really all the only assets we have. And so I'm worried about that. But as an industry, I would say it's really how content is going to be used in the future, because there's a lot of content, but it's actually not really been programmed appropriately. And that's why, we have a strategy practice that works with Fortune 500s associations, and it's going to be really, really important. And our industry isn't used to paying for that kind of stuff, but they're going to have to change their thinking, because that's the work that's going to be required to produce an omni-channel experience. You're going to have much clearer strategies up front, a lot of clarity around content, how content's used, and there's a gap in that skill set. That's not really represented in most of our customers' organizations.
I appreciate that, and that's to me that's really telling, because it's, as you said, content where it's used, but also how it's produced, where it's going to be used, is also going to get changed to that as well.
Yeah, completely agree.
All right, we're going to go to questions, and with Slido, as you can see, or you can't see, we can, because we're keeping Bob on screen here. First question, and again, as you see questions in Slido, you can just let us know if you like them and they can move up. Will food and beverage pricing increase a lot due to more staffing needs to serve guests versus self-serve? I guess, Dan, that's a you question.
It comes up a lot, right? We look out there, we're not going to let you pour your own coffee for a while. So there's an attended station. We've had groups, we actually had a couple of incentives this summer already, some incentives that never canceled, that wanted to take care of their people. And it was, we need to break up the bars, and we need to spread out the functions. And we had to have those attended, and we had a discussion around cost for attendance, because for us to have 20 attendants, which we normally would have just the coffee station and so forth, the cost is going to come in somewhere. We've worked very closely with our planner partners, and we work through a number of maybe complementary, and some that it's really not a money maker. It's really to manage the cost and lose less, quite frankly. A lot of our hotels are our partners out there. It's about losing less and opening and trying to run a business that is not bleeding. But at some point it's going to come in. I know that the sanitation and a lot of the additional costs that hotels are doing, there's a cost add there, but I think in the short run, we're providing free water, to our meetings for this year, knowing that we're not going to be doing, pictures and so forth. But I don't know that it's an immediate, but there's a cost impact somewhere.
Yeah, my answer to that's always been in the short term, probably not. Long term, if this continues
Yeah.
and becomes something that is,
That's right.
all through 21, then it has to be a consideration at that point.
It's
fair?
really, I think someone mentioned in the last panel, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
We should be working closely with our planners. Some groups aren't thinking about it, and we had a birthday party for a country singer 2 weeks ago in Fort Worth, and they wanted like one big bar and one little station, and we said, no, we forced them to have more bars and more stations for their own safety and for our staff safety.
I see one of the next question I think you just answered about hotel charges, F&B stations being staffed.
Right.
Next one is pertaining to large-scale programs, 1,000-plus attendees, how do hotels plan to ramp up staffing levels to properly operate in mid-late 2021? I think there's a lot of...
It's not even that. We have hotels right now, Corpus Christi, Hilton Head, Amelia Island, they're running 80, 90, 100%. In midweek, they're running 10, 15, 5%. It's really, we're seeing it in pockets. This hotel this week will be more staffed than they will this weekend or next week. And I do think it's going to be great news for us to be ramping back up. But rest assured, there's a population of out-of-work associates that really want to get back. So I don't know that ramping up, I think it's the training and the safety protocols to make sure everyone's educated on what the new rules are as an associate. But I don't actually fear the thinking that we just won't have enough associates to handle events. They're ready to come to work.
And can I just jump on this?
Please.
As you see that the larger meetings are taking place 1,000 plus, where we might have down-gauged scheduled service, right? We're slowly adding it up with the 3,000 flights that we're operating every day, but that's small in comparison, right? So let us know, because we can always up-gauge equipment to create better flow into a city where these largest meetings are happening, or we can add another flight, an extra section. So it's about communication to the hotel, to us, to the venues that you are contracting with, to make sure that there really will be a presence of what you're committed to.
Bob, how about in your space? I mean, knowing what you guys have gone through, where are you from a reality check as far as staffing now and what you would see as far as ramping up?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've reduced quite a bit of staff, and we have really three categories of employees. We have our union employees who work under a collective bargaining agreement. We have our full-time regular employees that are basically the management that produce all these events, and then we have a handful of independent producers and contractors and things like that. So for our full-time regular employees, for those folks who are on furlough, so people who haven't been permanently reduced, laid off, we've actually created supplemental programs because we don't want to lose that knowledge. So not only are we covering healthcare costs, both the employer and the employee costs, but we've actually created a sub-plan where we're actually providing them with a small stipend that doesn't impact their unemployment during this period of time, because it's probably one of the biggest things like I mentioned earlier, I worry about on the talent side is just making sure we don't lose those assets, because these events are complicated to produce. If you're putting on a consumer electronics show or pick something, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that we want to hold on to. So we've been working really, really hard at keeping in touch, motivating and incentivizing that workforce to stay close to Freeman. And, we have a every other week newsletter. We not only talk about what's happening in the business, what's happening in the industry, but we're addressing issues that we know they're dealing with. Maybe it's unemployment issues in certain states or whatever the case may be. So I feel like we've put a lot of effort into really protecting that knowledge base so that they're available to our clients when the time is right.
Well, thank you, Bob. And we have a question here. I'm going to throw it to all of you because it's something that's come up often on the calls. It's about sustainability. And, we get a lot of questioning saying, look, there's a lot of waste being produced with some of what we're doing, you name it, with some of the products. I've always maintained when you're going from 0 to 60, there's only so much product that was sustainable being made of certain categories, and that, as I've said, we almost need a little bit of a pass for 90 days, 120 days, until we can catch up with being able to buy the product. It's not an issue of want. But Dan, I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah.
Is that a fair comment?
It has come up. You know, we had an event recently where we had a give and take on questions, and I'm seeing a lot of bottled water, and I'm seeing a lot of, you know, individual plastic containers in those vessels. And our head chef, David Harker, and our Vice President of Food and Beverage and Operations, Devin Burns, we spend a lot of time now trying to find products that are compostable or recyclable, or how can we do it in a conscious way. But it is going to be difficult in the next 90 to 120 days. I believe those products will exist. We're talking to vendors about creating different products for food and beverage events that you can, you know, feel good about serving your attendees, that, you know, aren't going to take us back to, you know, yesteryear as it relates to helping, you know, treat the planet right. But it's going to be a tough one in the early going. Hard to find products, to your point. Supply chains, procurement, those teams are working overtime just to get any product, never mind it's, you know, environmentally safe.
Norma, how about from the airline industry? Anything on that side of it?
Well, we don't give you a choice of what you eat on airlines. And if anything, we're not serving as many choices as we were before.
Exactly.
In fact, there's no ice for you, or you, or you. We just got back to serving beer and wine in the front cabin and Comfort Plus. So, and all of our menu items are prepackaged so that you can see individually through the clear bag. You get the 2 snacks, you get a bottle of water, and then you get your own Purell. Everywhere you turn, we're giving you Purell. You know, you walk on board the plane, you get Purell. You get your snack bag, you get Purell, right? So, and in the front of the cabin, it's a contained box that, here you go. So I just think that people, because they're not living on our plane like they are living in your hotels, they take it upon themselves to eat on their own. And if anything, they just want some water, or that now they have their own containers, right? So the choices are not as necessary for us as it is for you all, right?
Well, I always, when I ask for or plead for patience, I remind people when we started the straw discussion, there wasn't enough producers of paper straws in the country.
That's right.
We couldn't get them. It's not that we didn't want to go there, it's you couldn't produce it fast enough. Now it's not an issue. Right. And I do think there's a silver lining in all of this. If everybody could give us a little patience, we're going to change a lot of sustainability fast forward as we move forward, because the product's going to be available. And the more product you have available, usually the cheaper the price becomes, because there's more of it being produced. So that's a good benefit, but I always say we need a pass if we could. We're trying everything we possibly can, but health right now is, you know, literally superseding what we can as far as product. And that's the other piece of this equation. Bob, anything to add on the sustainability conversation?
Well, we've never been more sustainable than we have been the last 6 months. Yeah, I would just add, Mike, that you know, we have a zero waste goal. We have a zero waste goal, and we actually are doubling down on our efforts, because we're using this time to reinvent the business. We'd already really changed our supply chain, which made a massive difference in terms of the materials that we were using to produce events and trade shows. But we're using this time to really accelerate many of the things that we had in our strategic plan, and zero waste is one of them. So we're forging ahead. We think that's really critical for the future.
Yeah, and Bob, we have a question here on Slido that's for you, and I think the answer is yes, because I've seen it, but the question was, any sample floor plans for booths for Q1 and in-person expos? Clear, you know, what those booths look like, what setups look like. I believe I have seen those.
Yeah, we actually have quite a bit out on our website where you can see a video, you can see designs, you can see guidelines and procedures. So we do have all that. And, you know, I think, again, it's kind of an interesting opportunity to kind of design for personalization, not just for health and safety. They really go hand in hand.
Appreciate it. Omni, there's a question here for where do you review the best resources for local and state? That's the magic question, isn't it?
That's a great question. I'd love the answer. we have now, we started doing that research, as Michael, you're pulling together for our hotels, because we need to educate our team so they can educate you all. It is very difficult.
Yeah.
Nana's done a nice job. We pushed Meetings Means Business, our collective, to help us source those.
Yeah.
They change rapidly,
Yeah.
and it's not easy, but we should maybe figure out a way to get Nan's updates that they're trying to do on a pretty regular basis. But I've been, honestly, there is no one place.
Yeah.
I think New York Times at one time had a ongoing, but they couldn't keep up.
Right.
But I think the Meetings Mean Business links are good, and then I go to each of the state websites for COVID, and our hotels now own sort of what's the latest. For example, in Riverside County and Rancho, you can only eat outside, so now everyone's putting together these makeshift outdoors. We just did an expo for the smoking industry of all industries, outdoors at Rancho, because they could meet outside, and we had these great outside booths, and it worked. But they all need to be those experts. But our teams should, and our competitors and our partners, they're a good resource because they're having to stay closer to it.
Yeah.
I would give a shout out to our partners in the convention and city bureaus.
No
Last
question.
night we had the CEO here from the Dallas Bureau. I mean, that's what they do. They sell the city, every city,
That's right.
as small, as large, as Boise to Dallas to LA to New York, and they are an excellent resource for all things that pertain to the local market. And we constantly talk to them because all of your hotels are constituents of the Bureau, right?
So Vicki uses social tables. She builds the diagrams for your event, Mike, sends them over. But we had the fire marshal review those, and they are reviewing them from a city local. So there's a lot of work that is going into making sure that you may think it's right. I'm not sure. Can we? To your point, working with those local AHLA and health organizations can help give you confidence that we're doing the right thing.
Sure, they're available.
And that's a great call out for everybody. This is a time to lean on your DMO partners. That's what they're there for, and especially if you're looking at certain locations.
Right.
It's a great call out, Norma. And then what Dan mentioned, Meetings Means Business, it's on the website. So if you go to the Meetings Means Business website, we've tried to isolate it, but again, it's hard to keep up with. But it's the latest that we know of by state and area as far as regulations. And then the work that's coming out of the APEX group, the APEX Recovery Task Force, and you'll hear a little bit more about that during lunch. But on that site, the goal there is to aggregate. The task force is not building standards.
Right.
What we're doing is aggregating and trying to curate all this information that's out there so that you can intelligently talk to it. But the goal is that eventually, that's going to have a link to the Meetings Means Business link that's already there, that you can go to that site and know everything's there.
And to make it even more complicated, when they wrote the orders, it says can't meet in more than groups of 10. But then at some point, where our industry has said, wait, gatherings, weddings, ceremonies, you'll find, 5 doors down that, for gatherings or weddings or meetings, this is the new rule, 50% capacity. But if you stopped at item 1.2, it says no more than 10. So make sure you're looking for gatherings, weddings, ceremonies, events on those state sites. You'll find more sometimes because they've updated them.
Yeah, that's what's really confusing. I always say it's clear as mud. And
Totally.
Bernard Shaw used to have a great quote, the challenge with communication is we all believe it happened. That's kind of the environment we're living in
They
right
do
now.
it Delta.
Yeah.
They do it Delta.
Let's go to, this one's definitely you, Norma. I thought I read the middle seat policy was through September. Has it been extended?
It is very, very much in this right now.
A definite maybe?
A definite maybe, yeah.
A definite maybe. Okay.
Like at 2
Perfect.
o'clock.
Beyond ensuring safety protocols within the hotel, how do you respond when clients are nervous because of what they've heard regarding a city, state in general?
I think it's a challenge, right? When we were in the middle of the first 2 weeks of June for our brand, and maybe many suppliers in the room or online, we were moving like this. And then we saw the spikes, the younger populations and getting out, and we had the protests, which were gatherings, which were then we had 4th of July. And really, it has been, as you described, been a rough road, but we're on this downswing, so to say, oh, I wouldn't meet there, they're a hotspot. Hotspot is like the buzzword of what's the hotspot, and quite frankly, Texas is doing this, Florida's been doing a lot of this, there are other places that are moving. It is very hard. If your groups are nervous, if you've got attendees that are worried, leverage your CVB, work with your partners. We're going to go with what the medical professionals and the local authorities are saying versus making it up. We're going to tell you what's the reality today.
Yeah.
And I think we all should be really proud of our industry. There have been no major issues in any of our buildings or with events, and that's everyone's work. So we're proving it right now that you can meet safely, you can network safely, you can gather and conduct business and stay and travel. We just need to keep telling people. When we were in that two months ago, we were having our event, and literally you're Zooming or Teamsing with the planner audience, bedrooms, kitchen tables, basements, and I'm like, wow, Texas had been opened up a little bit, and a New Jersey client said, I just cannot wait to get outside, and the first thing I'm going to do is go to a bar. And I'm thinking, I couldn't get in the restaurant 2 nights ago, and this person has not left their home for several months. So I get the fear, and it was clear to me then that there's a part of the country that sort of hadn't gotten out yet, and many of you who have traveled for the first time, it's going to be a continuous education.
Yeah, and you said something that's really telling. I've said this often. Where you live in the country, where you lived in the world, will dictate how you see any risk of leaving your house.
That's right.
Because it was a different it was a different wave in March and April than what we've even experienced now.
Yeah.
And
Dramatically.
The onus is on the individual too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do what you do because you're professionals and you seek this knowledge to impart on others. We do what we do, but the individuals need to be responsible for themselves. I mean, I saw a question about what do you do with people that don't want to wear masks because they are medically unable. Well, guess what? We connected to the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center 24/7. Talk to a doctor. If a doctor, right there at the gate, if the doctor assesses you and says you are medically unable to wear a mask, then we will make arrangements moving people around, put you in a special area of the aircraft. But not until the doctor says you're okay not to wear a mask.
Mike, we've been on, every other week we do a call with our catering and CS team because they're hosting these events and I don't know what we're learning. So we do this kind of great exchange of information. What did you do this week? What did we try? Who's asking? The first few calls were our wedding planners said they're not having the wedding if we're going to make our staff wear masks because they're not going to work well with the pictures. And I'm thinking to myself, they're worried about their pictures and their event, and we're worried about keeping everybody safe. We actually had an event in San Antonio a month and a half ago, and someone at the event called the police on the event while they're at the event. Police shows up with the health inspector, walks around, looked at all of our protocols, looked at what the group was doing, said, you're doing all the right things, we're leaving. And you're going to have this sort of, what about, and if we're doing all the right things and everyone's trying to do their part, I think we're going to be okay.
And someone asked about, did you see that?
The shield,
Shield, but no mask. Is that okay? No, it is not. What is wrong with you? Whoever asked that question, no. Air travels under.
But what if it has a Delta logo on it? Nice
matter.
Delta logo.
It needs to be, all this needs to be a big old widget. No.
And do I have to cover my nose?
Yes.
I don't want to see your nose hairs. I don't want to see anybody's nose hairs. Or chin hairs, which...
Well, there is something that I think some of the great work, and you saw it coming to this meeting, but it's on the website, and any meetings you have moving forward, it is a code of conduct that was part of the EIC's task force. And that code of conduct is reminding what we've just talked about. There's a shared responsibility here. And you have a responsibility as an attendee to understand that. And I highly encourage you to make sure you do that. We did it for our last meeting. We actually had people sign it for our last meeting. And it wasn't from a legal standpoint. It was, you're making a commitment to us. You know, it's just saying when you put ink to the paper, kind of feels like it's something formal. And you're just saying that you're going to comply with what we ask. And again, we've tried to do it without being enforcers as far as police enforcers, but it's habit. And we're having to remind you kindly at times, okay, don't forget, this is what we're trying to do. I think that's really important moving forward. And something that had happened on LinkedIn, and it was a while back, is you may have remembered or seen that there was somebody that was posting green bands, red bands, yellow bands. And that, green was meaning it's all go, you can hug me, you can high five, we're good to go. Yellow is still a little nervous, high five. Red, don't come near me. And somebody asked me, what do you think? I go, it's a horrible idea right now. And you should have seen the way it was exploding on social media. And I go, please listen to my wording. Right now, it's a horrible idea. When we know we have a vaccine and we know we're in a different area, that's probably a wonderful idea. But right now, the idea is for us to be able to showcase that we can actually meet in an environment that's following protocol. And all you need is one picture of people high-fiving and all hugging, and that becomes social. And how do you create that environment or that confidence? So I just need to put that out there, because that took off like wildfire. And believe me, it was even within my own team. And I was like, it's a terrible idea right now. And I can't stress enough, because we're all creative people in our industry. We liked it, and it was really a creative idea. But you got to understand the timing and where we are right now and the seriousness of it. What I'm more concerned about is the health official. You're doing that, somebody's reporting it, you come in, and now you've got people, well, everybody's making their choice on what they do. That's not the protocol, and that's not what we got approved when it's all said and done. We're getting to the end of this segment. I'm going to do the same thing I did last segment. And Bob, since I haven't gotten to you in a few minutes, any last parting words and reasonable hope and where you see us going forward?
Two parting words. Number one, I do just want to talk quickly about Go Live Together, which is a coalition that Freeman led the creation of, but by no means belongs to Freeman. It was really the entire industry coming together. I was really, sorry, fire truck. I was really proud of the industry for stepping up. We have over 2,500 members at Go Live Together. We're collaborating with other industry associations. Obviously, having a voice in Washington inside the Beltway is really critical to our industry, and it's not just for obvious reasons. I mean, clearly, for all of us that are in the venues, the airlines, the hotels, the service companies, we see the impact on our people and on our bottom lines. That's hundreds of billions of dollars. But what I think people lose sight of sometimes with business events and trade shows is that we are supporting the economic engine of America. Trade shows and large events are part of the fabric of this country. And 99% of business events, the companies that participate have fewer than 500 employees. So we're really talking about small business, and that's about 80% of all these businesses. We always look at the Fortune 100 that are exhibiting, but 80% of the show, almost 2 million exhibitors a year, are small businesses. And so, and about half of all small businesses in the United States participate in one event a year to drive their business. It's where they go to really, run their find the channel, sell, learn, innovate. So it's just really important that we get this business back safely, because it's important to our economy. And that's a big part of what Go Live is lobbying for. In addition to health and safety, it's really about how do we return business events and incentivize people to get back out there, because it's really critical to the economy. So I would just leave you with that. And of course, I'm always hopeful. I still believe in live. I think at the end of the day, this is a really terrible time, but we all want to be together. We're human beings. Models will change, broadcast, virtual, better use of data and content is going to be required, but that needed to happen anyway. So I'm optimistic for the long term.
Thank you, Bob. Norma, parting words? You want another cookie? Is that the parting words?
I got halfway through my box that was in my room. First of all, take the lead that our CEO has done, what Michael Dominguez has done in communicate. We are constantly refreshing our videos that I'm happy to share with any one of you through Michael or through myself, norma.dean@delta.com. It's that easy. We will send you the info. We have PowerPoint slides, anything to let people know that a safer journey starts now, right? And the more you inundate them with this information, the more acclimated people get, because the take rate of wearing masks is happening much quicker than safety belts did in automobiles.
Right.
People want to travel, people want to meet, and with your expertise and with excellent partners like I'm surrounded by today on this panel, and the great job that Delta Airlines is doing to lead the industry, we will get to the other side of this. We will get to the other side of this. And it's going to take all of us, because we are the ecosystem of travel.
Right.
All of us. So let's get those people on planes. Let's get meetings. Delta.com. Come on.
All right, Norma.
And guys, please take her up on the video. I was presenting for AMCI, and they had their annual conference, and it's a lot of association executives. The amount of emails I got after showing the Delta video, they're like, we need to show that to everybody.
I'm happy to send it to you.
Yeah, and it talks about the air, and it talks about what the plane really is. That's a big hurdle, and I would highly, highly encourage you to be able to do that.
Next time I'm going to have an hour for myself, just so I can tell y'all all about the journey.
Dan, closing words.
Yeah,
So.
I would say that Kara and Mark and I and our teams we're optimists, right? We're looking for some positive signs in all of this. Half of our hotels have business travel this week. Half of our hotels right now have business travel. That's a very small number of room nights, but it tells me that business travel is going to come back. And I do believe we have a little bit of an endless summer where that leisure is going to hold on enough for many of us. And if that business travel comes back and a little bit of group, because I'm agreeing that it's not going to be a lot, will get us through this rough patch. Next year, we're down 20% in the first 6 months. We're off 1% from July through December, 1. Right. I do think it's going to be interesting with, this room holds 800 classroom. Right. In our room sets, which we've redone with all the social distancing and put them on our site, but this room right now is 200, or less. And how do hotels manage all of this going forward when availability is going to shrink and then space is going to shrink? But I do think it's going to bounce back quickly when there's either a vaccine or there's more confidence. But I'm seeing it. It's been a tough, our business has taken a lot of hits. And I would just say, to Norma's point, to do your research. All of our brands are working real hard. And I'm excited when we all win, we see events, because that means it's going to continue to grow. And we've got testimonials. We can send pictures. We all are doing it. And that's going to help all of you tell up the ladder, no, wait, I was there. No, I saw this. Here's some pictures. Here's how we're doing it safe. Because I think risk right now is in everyone's mind of we don't want to have the downside. But I get that. I'm hopeful that it comes back a little bit sooner than 2023. I heard earlier.
Bob, Norma, Dan, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
For your time and your expertise. Please.
Thank you for
round of
coming,
applause for
y'all.
them.